Hey everyone, I'm your host, Robbie Straczynski, and thanks so much for joining us on episode number 47 of CardsChat, the friendliest poker podcast in town. Today's guest is one of the most versatile and successful players in poker, whether it's online, live, cash games, tournaments, and now entrepreneurship with his new app, Floptimal. He's maybe best known for his runner-up finish to Greg Merson in the 2012 WSOP Main event for $5.3 million. But since then, he's collected another $2.4 million in cashes, including a Wpt Title. But besides the on-felt accolades, he's also known for being one of the nicest and most genuine people in the game. Jesse Sylvia, welcome to the CardsChat podcast.
Thanks, man. That was a really kind intro.
Well earned. Well earned. That's for sure. You don't make an intro like that, unless, you've really been around for a while, and everyone really does feel that way. I remember when I first met you in person a few years ago at WPT Tournament of Champions, just like, wow, the nicest guy in the world. We never really met before. And it was just like, really, this is my girlfriend. Ashley is like, wow, more people like that. It was really, really cool of you, and certainly a well-deserved reputation. Nice to speak to you again.
Thank you. Yeah, great to talk to you again.
Cool, thank you. Well, as with all of us, obviously the past year and a half or so, we were kind of forced away, not just from poker, but our regular lives as we know them. Things, thankfully, are now getting closer to normal. Everything's returning. And of course, you jumped right back into the poker scene. How excited have you been to sort of return to action in Vegas, which has really been booming the last couple months?
Yeah, I've been having tons of fun.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I just missed people. And one nice thing about playing poker is, you inevitably see all of your friends that you haven't seen. It's like normal, I guess people with regular lives and regular jobs. I don't know what a regular job means, so maybe that's not a thing, but like the 9-to-5 type of job. Yeah, like exactly. You'll see all of your coworkers, but you'll have to call up friends and organize dinners or whatever. And It's like, I can see a lot of friends that I might not have otherwise seen by just walking to a casino and bumping into them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The tournaments have been great. They're breaking these guarantees in the first flight sometimes of like a 4 day 1 flight turn. It's nuts right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the city itself also kind of just really coming back to life. Do you know, you've been living in Vegas for a while, is it back to the way it was before, things went crazy?
Yeah. It feels very much back to normal.
Awesome.
It's crowded. I remember the first day they announced we could take our masks off if we were vaccinated. I'd been vaccinated for a few weeks already anyways, but it was just, there were still dividers up, but it felt very, very awkward to take my mask off in the casino. Keep in mind, I'd been in a casino twice before I got vaccinated, and it was literally just to pick up money from someone and leave or whatever. I was pretty locked down. And so that felt weird. And then the next week they took down the glass dividers, and all of a sudden it felt very normal again.
Yeah.
That was kind of nice.
For sure. I had the good pleasure to visit back in April, certainly with the plexiglass everywhere, with the masks, and it was still pretty cool. I hadn't been to a casino in quite a while, but it certainly didn't feel normal by any stretch of the imagination. But, it's the kind of thing, like you said, you take it off, you strip all that stuff away, and oh, okay, that does feel pretty cool. You haven't just enjoyed yourself. You've seen some pretty, some success. You had 3 5-figure cashes just in the last couple months since coming back, run to 21st place in the Win Millions for just under 85K. We heard a lot of great things, so just universally positive feedback about that event. What was it like for you, and what kind of made that new event, the Win Millions, so special?
That event was just really, really well run. Every little detail was, they just put you could just tell that they put a lot of time and effort into the detail of it. For instance, this is a very small thing, but when you notice things like this, I feel like, it speaks for the whole tournament and how well they organized it.
Mm-hmm.
All the payouts were, so normally a pay jump is, some multiple of 9 if you're playing 9-handed tables. So 36, 27, 45, whatever.
Right.
they did it one player below that. So they did 44, 35. The reason for that is that now you have even tables right before the pay jump. So that if somebody's on, like somebody's really short and somebody's on another table and they're really short, maybe one of those two guys has a table that's shorter handed, so they have to pay the blinds more often.
Right.
It's a very, very small thing, but it's something that's, if you think about it mathematically, it's just like, it makes a lot of sense. It's really intuitive, and nobody does it. Wow. And those are like the little things that you notice. You're like, wow, these guys really went above and beyond planning this out. They had no dinner breaks for the first few days, and they would just play a couple less levels and we would just be done at like 8:30 or 9. And if you had a dinner break for like an hour, then you get like 2 more levels in. And it's really like, for 2 more levels, you could just let people do their own dinner.
Right.
And just like go about their lives for the night and actually get some sleep for the next day. It was, those sort of things are huge for me. I really like that kind of stuff.
Huh, that's interesting. That's so funny because, like, you know, I'm not a professional player, and that's, you know, not something I would necessarily pay attention to. Like, whatever the structure is, great, but obviously it's something that professionals who grind these tournaments all the time would, you know, certainly appreciate. Was that kind of like a topic of discussion at the tables about like, hey, this is pretty awesome, or just something that you noticed on your own?
No, it was a bit of a topic of discussion. Actually, I think day 1 we did have a dinner break, and then starting day 2 we didn't have a dinner break. But nobody complained about day 1 because they gave us, everyone who played the tournament got to use the Win buffet for dinner break, and they hadn't even opened it yet. So it was like the first time it was used in 2 years was for these poker players. But yeah, it was like things like that definitely get discussed. I think that like that it just goes a long way, because when you go deep in these tournaments, you play these 5-day tournaments, you get really tired. You have a lot of adrenaline and it's hard to sleep. And it's nice to have the extra hours to wind down. So when you have a restart at 12 o'clock and you go to bed at 1 o'clock, really you're going to bed. Like if you get done for the night at like 12:30, you're not going to bed till like 2.
Right.
You wake up a little groggy and out of it. So if you have the opportunity to go to bed at like 10:30, or at least try to like wind down at 10:30, that's pretty massive, especially, you know, day 3 or 4 when you're like really starting to feel the anxiety and the adrenaline and stuff like that. I'm really bad at getting enough sleep during tournaments, so I just get way too excited when I'm deep in a tournament. So these things matter a lot to me, especially. For
sure. And you know, in a game and in a time in poker where every little edge, every little bit matters, you know, you got to get that sleep and be, you know, full on your A game the next morning when play starts, or afternoon. You know, obviously, you know, that's not the only place you played, not the only tournament you played. Has all of this kind of like, it's funny because in a regular summer, in a regular year, this would be WSOP time. It's not, but still, there's just, like you said, the city's thriving, poker's doing very well, tournaments everywhere. Have all of these tournaments kind of like got you itching for the WSOP? Have you planned out your schedule and, you know, maybe take a couple shots? Like, what are you going to do in the fall?
You know, I haven't done a ton of planning for tournaments. I've been just so busy working on other projects and then also firing tournaments and, you know, just working with people on their poker game and stuff like that. But I generally find that I'm happier and I perform better when I just wake up every day, look at the schedule. I'm like, all right, I'll play this tournament, and just show up and play it. When I've planned it out, I feel this pressure to play something every day, and rather than, you know, just take a day off or maybe skip something because the next day is this other tournament. And I just, there's so many tournaments during the summer that it's nice to have kind of a free flowing plan, at least for me.
Okay.
I have friends, Ashley is a good example. My fiance, she really plans out her whole schedule, and that works better for her. I just find for me that I like waking up and just saying, oh, this is the tournament today. All right, let's do it. Right. And I kind of do that now too, but it's worse to do it now because tournaments are at different casinos. So what I do is I wake up and I'm like, Ashley, what's the best tournament to play? She's like, you should go play this one.
Awesome.
I think she's secretly getting me to play the one that she's not in.
Aha, I see.
you know?
Well, you're car paying the DM. Well, that's pretty cool. We'll talk a little bit, Ashley, later on in the show. But like you said, there's other stuff you were working on besides just playing. You got Floptimal. Obviously without live poker for the bulk of the last year, you did play some online, but a large amount of your time was kind of creating this new poker training app. It's called Floptimal. Why don't you go ahead and tell everyone listening and watching, how the idea for it came to fruition and what exactly this app is all about.
Okay, so for like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, I had a lot of questions about the pre-flop game tree and what you're, I'm going to say the word like supposed to do, but that's kind of a loose way to say it. Basically like what like game theory dictates that you do in a vacuum, right? Because a lot of poker is adjusting to the players around you and stuff, but there's a starting point that you adjust from, right? And that would be like, maybe we'll call it like the Nash equilibrium or whatever. But there's a very clear cut starting point that you want to start from, and then you adjust from there. And that's kind of like the correct play. And I had a lot of questions about, how light can we peel from the big blind? Because I wasn't really sure. That's actually figuring out river play. If generally players' ranges is quite easy. You could do it, with a spreadsheet, or you could do it by hand if you wanted to. But figuring out pre-flop is quite difficult because you have to work your way backwards. And it's a complex equation, right? So when we started studying like the GTO pre-flop game tree, there was a few, a few companies that sold the information. A lot of times the information was super, super expensive. And we didn't really like the interface. It wasn't great as a study tool. I would kind of take the information and then submit it on different spreadsheets so I could view it differently and stuff like that. And so we were having this conversation with a friend of ours, Shireen, who is very talented in the computer science world. And she was like, well, what would the ideal study tool look like? And we just started talking about it. And we just started discussing like the viability of actually making it as a product, because there's plenty of people like us who want something similar. And so this is kind of the, final product of what we really wanted as a study tool and what we felt like was missing in the poker world to study poker with. What it is right now is it's sort of like a simulator for all of the pre-flop situations. So you can input, a situation and see what it'll spit out a range, and it'll say like, you should re-raise these sort of hands and you should call these sort of hands. And then we accompanied it with a bunch of different study tools that compares different ranges or compares how a hand would play. Maybe in this situation, you're on 25 big blinds, but you want to see, do we still play this hand this way on 30 big blinds or 40 big blinds, and so on and so forth. So we create a lot of tools that show, we call it like the edges of playability for a hand. Maybe you play a hand from the cutoff on 30 bigs, but you don't play it on the hijack, or you don't play it on the hijack on 25 big blinds or something like that. And we created these visual representations of it that are easy to remember, because you just kind of see this nice little line going down of like where the hand stops being playable. Those things mattered a lot to us because a lot of us are visual learners.
Yeah.
And also it's just putting the information side by side is difficult to do normally. And we wanted a way to do it very easily.
Cool. So I guess you were just working on the visual interface. Like at what point do you sort of say to yourself, obviously any sort of app, any sort of program takes a long time to develop. At what point do you sort of say, we're ready? This is a tool that's, ready for market.
Yeah, true. I don't know. I think we were working on it and we kept trying to perfect more and more things. And eventually someone in the group was like, we should put a launch date just to give ourselves a deadline, because otherwise we're just going to keep trying to perfect this thing. Okay. I think I've read a few books on startups in the tech space, and they talk a lot about just putting out they call it the MVP. It's the minimum viable product.
Sure.
But the idea is that people get obsessed with, putting out a perfect product. because they've seen a lot of businesses that are already, like, let's say you start up a store, right? And like maybe a shoe store. You want everything to be kind of perfect because you're copying a model that already exists.
Right.
But in the tech space, you're often disrupting things that, sectors with something that doesn't exist.
Right.
So you really want to get out the product as quickly as possible so you can get feedback, because this has not been done before. You want to hear what people think about it and what needs to be changed and stuff like that. So
right.
striving for perfection is actually kind of silly when we don't even know what perfection is on anything.
Got it. Okay.
Who would you say? So that was a long answer. No, that was a long answer to a simple question. But yeah, we eventually just decided, like, we need to put this out there and see what people think and get feedback.
Yeah, it makes sense. That's what I'm saying. Like, the long answer is, like, I'm familiar with that feeling of, look, it's your baby. You've been working, investing so much time, effort, and I understand that desire for it to be perfect. That's sort of where it came from, is like, well, how do you know? So it's interesting to sort of hear that, behind the scenes kind of like discussion and thought process. Who's your app for? Is it for cash game players, tournament players, novices, experts, pros? Like, who's the target audience?
Yeah, so right now it's for tournament players. All the ranges are based on tournament structures. There's an ante involved. We have the stack sizes go from 6 big blinds all the way up to 75 big blinds.
Mm-hmm.
But we're actually in the works right now on running a simulation so that we have the cash game ranges. We'd like to do 100 big blinds deep and 200 big blinds deep cash games ranges, and then also do the same ones but with an ante. Because a lot of cash games lately have started adding an ante, which I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
But yeah, it's one thing that we really focused on was not making this app just usable by experienced poker pros who already know a lot of this stuff. We wanted to make it for everyone in poker, and there's a huge barrier of entry to learning certain things about poker because these solvers are unbelievably difficult to use when you start out. And so we wanted to take the information and make it as easy to view and as easy to use as possible. And I think we really achieved that. The UI is really, really nice, really easy to use. It's just super elegantly.
Mm-hmm.
I'm bragging for the design side of it because I wasn't a part of the design side of it. I mean, I had input, but I'm not responsible. I'm not a designer or anything like that. Right. But I just really love the final product. And
awesome.
Really nice to it's nice to use, which is maybe not true of a lot of programs out there.
Okay, well, it's obviously user interface is so important. I think I just saw a little, I think it was CNBC documentary about how Microsoft Office product in Windows sort of developed. Not to get off track, but like the whole thing is it's just DOS, but like it's a much better interface and people can actually use it. It's sort of, oh, this makes sense. This makes sense. Obviously, all that time and effort is so important. It could be a great product, but people have to be able to use it. Speaking of using it, one person I know who used it, Brad Owen, in a recent vlog, he was playing in the WPT 25K heads up down in Cabo, and he talks about how you two guys connected for some study sessions with Floptimal. So what was it like working with him?
Oh, it's great. Brad's a friend of mine. It wasn't even like a official working with him thing. It was just,
okay.
I was talking to him and he was like, I'm a little nervous. I'm playing Daniel, who's obviously phenomenal at poker and quite a strong heads-up player.
Right.
Yeah. And I was just like, do you have some study resources? And he was like, not enough. And so I sent him some stuff and we talked back and forth a little bit, but yeah, we hang out a good bit. So we inevitably talk about poker a lot.
Cool. Without that, he just, would have been clean swept 2-0, but he managed to get one win in there, 2 out of 3 that he lost. But that's pretty cool. I'm glad you had fun with it. Were you also down there in Mexico helping out, or it was all like virtual sessions?
No, I was actually on my way out to Lake Mead when we were talking about it. It was kind of funny. So I was like, this conversation might just abruptly end at some point when I lose service. But yeah, I was on a boat that day.
Nice. Okay, very cool. Your partner in Floptimal, when you say we developed Russell Thomas. He was actually at the final table with you at the 2012 main event. He finished fourth for $2.8 million. How cool, again, we'll take you back a little bit, it's, man, almost a decade, but, how cool was it to have your friend at the final table with you? And how long had you known each other at that point in time?
Oh, that was so wild. Making that final table was one of the more surreal experiences in my life because I knew 3 people at the final table ahead of time. Yeah, crazy. Well, Greg and I and Jeremy and I both played like every day at the Bellagio. Jeremy actually lives in Vegas, so I played with him for the last year and a half at the Bellagio every day. Greg would come in the summer and play at the Bellagio every day when he wasn't playing tournaments.
And there were like 6,700 entries, something like that year?
Yeah. Russell and I, Russell and I making the final table is wild because we were roommates 2 years earlier. We spent every day during the main event, every dinner break, we would have dinner together and stuff. Wow. So that was like, I knew a lot of people at that point in the poker world. So it's not, if somebody like Greg or Jeremy had made the final table with me, I'd be like, okay, the odds aren't, astronomical. But the fact that the guy I was having dinner with every night, it was nuts.
Wow. That's obvious. Yeah. Obviously, his presence there doesn't impact how either of you played, but once it gets down to like the final 4 people, do you remember how both of you, or maybe you talked about it on dinner break the night before, how you guys were feeling emotionally at that point?
Yeah, I think more we discussed like hands and stuff. Often when you're feeling emotional about a tournament, for me at least, a lot of the emotions come from feeling unsure about my play at some point. Because if I feel really good about my play, I don't usually feel that emotional. I just feel confident and I want to get in there and do my best. Obviously, I'm excited and I don't know what's going to happen. So I do have those emotions running through me. But we would do more like hand history discussions at dinner. And those always made me feel better because if he liked a hand, I think Russell's really, really smart. So usually if he agrees with the hand, I feel a little bit better about it.
You should partner with him and like create an app or something.
Maybe one day.
Yeah. Very cool. Obviously a pivotal moment, in anyone's life, finishing runner-up, biggest tournament in the world, main event, $5.3 million. I hate to phrase it in such a way, but at the end of the day, Merson finished first. He won the bracelet. Do you still kind of have that? Very few people just as few people can say they finished runner-up in the main event as they did, winner. Do you have still a little bit of a, monkey on your back as far as I want to win a bracelet?
I definitely want to win a bracelet. I've been firing all of these online events that have been happening. For people who don't know, there's an online bracelet series happening right now. So every day there's an online event.
Yeah, WSOP.com.
Yeah. Actually, my buddy last night won it, Ryan Lang.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was cool. So yeah, I've been firing all those. I definitely want to win a bracelet. I think when I won Borgata, a lot of that monkey up my back sort of thing disappeared because I don't know. I at that point I just never won a live tournament, and so I wanted to win a live tournament. I had a lot of like seconds and thirds and stuff like that. But I'm generally pretty good about. I understand how lucky I've been in my career to some extent. I understand that there are certain opportunities that came from that like people will never get to experience. And honestly, like those don't even exist for a lot of American players anymore, like some of the sponsorship stuff that happened afterwards.
Right.
So it's never been, I'm frustrated when I get like third in a tournament and I had chip lead or something like that, but like, it's never been like a huge issue to me. I don't know. I got into poker because I love games. And I found a game where you can, win money or make money at it. And for a long time, I never felt like the quintessential poker player. I was just a guy who loved poker that kind of was in this world. But over the years now, I've become more and more of like a poker player where a lot of my friends, most of my friends out here are poker players. But especially at the time, I was I felt more of like kind of a outsider who was just sort of making his way into like the total poker world and knowing more people. So it didn't feel like me not being the champion was a big deal. Like it felt very like Greg was a perfect champion. You know, he embodied poker. Yeah, it was, that felt very right to me. So that was always kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, after having won a couple tournaments, I do feel slightly better.
Good. Well, I mean, you did kind of predict, the next question here. We were going to talk obviously about WPT Borgata. You do have, a WPT title, 821K in 2016. The money's different. It's still a fortune, $821,000. It's not the same as $5.3 million, but it is a win as opposed to the second place. So I'm just curious, when you look back on, the highlights of your career, which one do you kind of like rank as the bigger moment?
Yeah, it's weird. I've been asked that and I honestly have no idea. I mean, they're just so different, because one is like, I got to be like a champion of something, which is kind of cool. But the other one is like, our world championship.
Sure.
So to speak. So I don't know. I just kind of view them both as wonderful little blips on like a timeline.
Okay.
I don't know. It's just, I really couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I don't think there's any right answer there. Just, it was more of like, maybe there's a personal choice. Well, one thing I don't know if you've been asked before, with either of those two specific scores, did you have any sort of massive splurge that kind of still makes you smile till today after winning and then, the runner-up in those two events?
I'm not sure. I don't really splurge on much. I got to buy a house back where I grew up.
Awesome.
And like my mom lives in it, and that was like a really, really good feeling.
Amazing.
My mom's just like always done, like literally given us everything that she's had. Wow. And so it was like nice to do something like that. But other than that, like I remember when I final tabled the main, people kept asking me like, what's the craziest thing you bought? And I was like, I bought like an iPad, man. Like I don't need like, I like interacting with people. That makes me really happy. I definitely like doing, upscale things. Like I eat really nice meals sometimes, and I like food a lot, but I don't do a lot of crazy stuff like that. I think like the most splurgy thing was we bought a really high-end bed, which is like probably a great investment for your life anyways.
Yeah, it's important to get a good night's sleep. But I mean, look, buying your mom a home, and what more do you need? That's such a beautiful thing, That's an amazing thing.
It's just like, that was kind of like the goal I had in my head too, was I had a certain place where if I finished the main, I had a backer, so I was getting, around half of what I won, minus taxes.
Of course.
So I had this place at the final table in my head where I was like, all right, if we get to this place, we could buy a house. So that was kind of cool.
Huge. That's just a wonderful thing to do. And like you say, your mom lives there every single day. She gets to wake up in that, in a home like that. That's just a wonderful thing. I mentioned at the top of the show, for those lucky enough to have met you, and I'm pretty sure those who have listened thus far to the entirety of the podcast, you're known to be one of the most genuine, friendly players in our game. How important is it to you to bring positivity into poker?
I think bringing positivity is a good way to put it. I think that's important to me. I don't know. At the end of the day, like the way the poker economy kind of works is like we don't add a lot to poker. Professional poker players don't add a lot to like the utility of the world, right? But we do provide this one sort of source of entertainment to people who want to like show up and play a skill, like gamble and play a game that's highly competitive and see how they do on that field. And I think making that experience as fun as possible is important. And I think a lot of people neglect that, and that's sad. But I'm also just kind of naturally a pretty outgoing person, and I'm a pretty happy guy. So it's not like I'm exerting a lot of energy to do this or anything like that. So I don't know. It's not like I deserve a lot of credit. I'm just kind of going out there and mostly being me.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, I I think I just generally kind of approach each person as, you know, like a new experience, like somebody, you know, who could be interesting that I might end up being friends with or acquaintances with, or at least like learn something new from them. And like when you have that kind of approach, it usually makes life a lot more fun. And
cool. That's a great quote. We'll put that as the tagline of this episode. That's a great approach, towards life in general. On a related note, one of the questions we always love to ask, our interviewees here on the show is, who is the friendliest player you've ever had the pleasure of competing against at the Felt?
Oh man. I might have to think about that for a few minutes and come back to it.
We'll use a time chip.
That's a tough one. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Certainly one of my favorites, at least, though, is Athanasios. He's a pretty good friend of mine now, too. Or he's a really good friend of mine now.
Polychronopoulos, right?
Yeah. I met him in the funniest way. Antonio Esfandiari kept telling me that I was the second nicest poker player. And
it's a very Antonio line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He loves it. It's such an Antonio line. And I was like, who's the nicest? And I didn't know it. The reason I said like pretty good friends now is because Athanasios guy. And I was like, man, screw that guy. And he was like, that's player number 2, buddy. And then I met Athanasios and I told him that story and he gave me a high five when I said, screw that guy. So I was just like, oh, this guy really is the nicest. And he's delightful at the table. He's just an awesome dude. The first time I played with him, I was on a somewhat short stack and he had a ton of chips and he raised really large under the gun. I remember it being like something I didn't expect at all from him. He like 4x'd it. And I had a hand that was pretty close. Maybe we were near a bubble or something. I just remember I had a hand that was pretty close. I would normally definitely play. And I was like, I feel like this raise size, like I was like really like trying to look into this raise size. Like I feel like this raise size, from a different type of player might be really strong, but from him, maybe he's just trying to look really strong or something like that. I ended up folding and I asked him later what he had. And he was like, I don't know. I only looked at one card. And that was like my introduction to Athanasios. I just absolutely love the guy ever since.
Great. That's a great story. Good name to put forth, and lots of points in Scrabble for Athanasios Polychronopoulos.
Fun fact, he has the longest name of any bracelet winner.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. I remember there was a Billy Pappas, finished 5th in one of the main events. William Papa Constantinou or something. Didn't win the bracelet though. It was the foosball player. Yeah.
No, he was. I was rooting for him. I met him in between him making the final table and playing it out. He's from Massachusetts, so we kind of had a little bond there. But I talked to him a little bit, like briefly. But I was rooting for him too because he was he was the foosball world champion.
That's right. Yep.
And I just thought it'd be really cool that he could be world champion in 2 things. That'd be pretty wild.
Very cool. One of the things back, you and I actually did speak before on a different podcast a few years back, and we talked about the difference in atmosphere between tournaments and cash games. And you said cash games were generally more fun. Do you still feel that way?
It's tough. I don't know. I think, like, if you want to say like the average time, cash games are like, they have a more fun atmosphere. I think the day 1 of a tournament's fun. Everyone's hanging out. Day 2, everyone gets a little quieter. Day 3, everyone's just like super hyper focused because they want to win the tournament. Most of the time in a cash game, you're going to have a good time. People are, especially if you play like higher stakes at like Bellagio or the Aria, the guys who have stuck around do a really good job of creating a fun atmosphere and keeping it lighthearted. Obviously we're all trying to like beat each other out of large sums of money,
of course,
but it's like you can still have a good time while you're doing it, and so I think that the general atmosphere at a cash game is more fun, but it's way more fun to win a tournament or to final table a tournament. Don't get me wrong. Like that's why we play tournaments, right? Because
Right.
tournaments are a lot of pain with a little bit of payoff, but the payoff is so good,
right,
that we continue to play them.
Yeah, well, that's another good quote, another good outtake there.
Oh yeah, I got them all, man.
Yeah. On sort of a related note, about talking about like a good, an inviting social atmosphere, but not necessarily at these high stakes. I wanted to ask you, a place that both you and your fiance Ashley have had a lot of fun and success at has been Jason Somerville's Run It Up Reno series. How important would you say series like those are with these lower buy-ins that are kind of like more approachable, I guess, for recreational players and people who are new to poker?
Okay, so first of all, I think Ashley's had success. I don't know if I've had any success at these. I will start off with
we
that.
tried to be okay. Kudos on the honesty. Okay.
I appreciate it. Every time we go out there, she final tables something, and
Yep.
I seem to be watching from an iPad in the hotel room or something.
But the iPad that you bought with your winnings from being runner-up in the main event. Okay, fair enough, fair enough.
So let's keep that all in
Okay.
perspective.
Yeah.
No, she lets me go and rail it live. So I'm not in the hotel room. I'm actually watching from the rail. But yeah, what Jason has been doing is just unbelievable. Like it's just so good for poker. He creates an atmosphere that's very inviting, I think, to people who are just getting into poker or who like poker, but it's not like their job per se. It's just like, first of all, they create a really, really fun atmosphere out there. The way that they design the games that they inevitably make tournaments out of and stuff. Just people's demeanor, everything's just a lot of fun. The stakes that they choose so that it's not, completely unobtainable to people who have always watched the stream and want to play some of these tournaments. I can't say enough good stuff about it. I love going out there. It's so much fun.
Awesome. I hope to attend myself someday. I always look at
you need to come out.
And, I looked at those pictures. Oh my God, that looks like fun.
Man, and Reno's really cool. I always thought, I had never spent any time in Reno, and I always thought it was like a smaller, kind of dustier Las Vegas. It's more like Las Vegas and Tahoe had a baby, sort of. Like actual, because it's near Tahoe. You have this beautiful lake.
Sure.
There's actually vegetation and trees out there, which is really nice to see. And the Peppermill's a really cool casino. I like it a lot.
Nice. Shout out to the Peppermill. Well, let's talk a little bit about your significant other, Bet Ashley. Like you said, she's experienced a ton of success. She won the Thursday Thrilla up there in 2019 for 24K. She recently won also a Lips Tour event at the Venetian for 15K. She's got some skills here at over 300K in tournament earnings and a WSOP ring. What's it like talking poker with your fiance and, just having that shared passion together?
It's awesome. It's really nice to understand each other on that level, if she had, gone into more of a career in dance, she was part of a dance company out of Austin, Texas. But let's say that she continued on with that. That would just be something that I would understand very surface level. But with this, I understand on a very, very deep level. Like, for instance, I understand exactly why she's feeling bad after she busts out of a tournament. Not just that she's feeling bad that she busted out, but maybe she's feeling bad because there was a spot where she had been working on it and then she didn't pull the trigger on executing in the way that she had studied or something. You know what I mean? That's a much deeper level to understand a person and how their day went.
And you've
so that's really
been
cool
there yourself.
Yeah, exactly. It's too many times with them not pulling the trigger after working on a spot. But yeah, I think I really enjoy it. I wasn't planning to teach Ashley poker when we met. She knew nothing about poker. Wow. I had tried to teach a girl or two that I was dating in the past poker, and it went kind of poorly. And she was very analytically intelligent, but she's also got a very strong right brain creative side. And so
good combination.
I always love that part of it. What's that?
Good combination for the poker table.
Yeah, certainly. But I always loved that she, aired towards doing things with her, the creative side,
Mm-hmm.
the artistic side. And then when she moved out to Vegas, all we talked about out here was poker, and all of our friends are poker players. So she wanted to learn just to know what we were talking about. It's a different language.
Cool.
When you start describing hand histories.
Sure.
And then that turned into like her playing a bit online. And then that turned into her quitting her retail job that she had out here and, playing poker and so on and so forth. So
Sweet.
it was a really cool evolution I didn't see coming. And, it only really happened because Ashley is super smart and really competitive, and those things are great to have when you're a poker player.
Do you guys study together, or do you kind of study in different ways and have, like you said, have some people are visual learners, some people learn in different ways, or, what is your methods?
No, we work together.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, we had a time period where it's tough. It's weird having a dynamic, because for a lot of the time that she was getting better, obviously I was a lot better than her.
Right.
And so it's a weird dynamic to be, have your partner also be kind of like your coach or whatever.
Sure.
And so we actually asked a friend who I think is one of the best poker players I know, if he was interested in working with her and coaching her. And he did it for a while. And that was really cool because, we really approach this from the idea of, we don't want like a poker relationship to change like our relationship.
Of course.
I guess.
Of course.
And so she worked with somebody else for a little while, and that was kind of cool. And then I don't know, inevitably it just kind of shifted back to us working together, which has been really great. But
Fantastic.
I definitely don't think like it's like a static thing where you always want to do one or the other. I think that you kind of want to like go with the flow and that sort of stuff, because there are like very, very odd dynamics that come from relationships outside of poker and then in poker, for sure.
I can imagine. That's an interesting perspective from which to be speaking. On perhaps a more lighter note, just talking relationship rather than the poker itself. Obviously, both of you guys, you're fans of traveling. There's a ton of great pictures of you guys on Instagram. Now that travel's kind of becoming a thing, are you excited to visit a certain place again, or for the first time? Do you have like a favorite place you want to tell us all about?
Yeah, my favorite place to travel for poker by far is Melbourne, Australia, or Melbourne, as they say it. Yeah. It's amazing. It's summer there during our winter.
Mm-hmm.
They have the best breakfast in the world out there. Every breakfast spot just takes so much pride in creating this food. It's nice. Unbelievable. They have some of the best coffee I've ever had. I'm really, really into coffee. Actually, that was something that me and Ashley bonded on when we first met, was that
really?
We both we had both dated people who didn't like coffee in the past. And we were just like, you just know it's doomed. It's a doomed relationship. If you're if you're as into coffee as we are, and the other person isn't, you're like, because I think sitting together in the morning and having coffee is like a big part of you know what I mean?
Amazing. Well, this podcast is brought to you by Starbucks. So I kid.
No, but anyways, the coffee is insane out there. Australian Open is happening during the Aussie Millions.
Yeah.
And that's really fun. I love tennis.
Oh, cool.
Going to matches is really fun. They create this whole sort of like, it's almost like a playground around the tennis courts.
Cool.
And there's different little, drink stands to go to, and foods, almost like food trucks, but just like stands. And you can go into like a match and then go back out of the stadium and hang out in this other area. They have they lay down AstroTurf everywhere, so you can lay out like having a picnic or something and watch matches on these big billboards. It's so much fun. The food out there is unbelievable outside of breakfast as well. People are really cool. They're just very like laid back in general, the Aussies. I don't know. It's unbelievable out there.
So hopefully that'll come back on the tournament circuit soon, when things calm down over there. Obviously, international travel is a little bit impaired at the moment still, but I'm sure that'll be circled on everyone's calendar once Aussie Millions comes back and once we're able to fly there. So now I've got, two things I've learned. I got to go visit Reno and I got to go visit Melbourne for the first time as well.
Yeah, but these are really good things you have to do. Like as far as tasks.
We'll get there, right? Right, exactly right. If this is what I haven't done, I've done plenty already. So that's a good feeling. That's true. Leaning in here, we're almost at the community questions segment. But first, I got to ask you. We're big fans of mixed games here in the CardsChat community as well, and you've had a few decent cashes in mixed gameplay over the years, according to your Hendon Mob. We checked it out. 2013, you had a cash in WSOP Horse. 2015, you cashed in the 1500 Dealer's Choice. 2017, at Run It Up Reno, you hit second place there. Also in the Norse event. What's Norse? What's the N for?
Instead of Limit Hold'em, they threw No Limit Hold'em in the mix.
Ooh,
so it's Horse with No Limit Hold'em instead of Limit. It was really fun actually. You have to make the blinds a lot lower for No Limit Hold'em, or way the biggest game, but.
A tremendous variance there all of a sudden to throw a no limit game with the other four. That's interesting. Okay, cool.
Yeah. They do it in 8 game with PLO and no limit hold'em, and it's you just have to get the stakes right or else it's a disaster for the limit games, I guess. But it's a lot of fun when you throw a couple of those in for sure.
Make sure you get that Chainsaw Kessler approved structure there. How often do you dabble in the mixed game streets?
Not that often, to be honest. Like, I wanted to get really good at the mixed games. I want to give myself more bracelet opportunities. I thought, there'd be a lot of cool spots to just play like a big cash game. There's just, it's hard to learn the games, first of all.
Yeah.
There's just so many of them and they're very different. So like from an actual like study, trying to get really elite standpoint, they're quite difficult. But more importantly, I realized like, I love playing those games. They're so much fun.
Yeah.
But I didn't really, they weren't, some of those games aren't games that I felt the need to be super good at. I was very happy playing the 1500 Dealer's Choice events and stuff like that. Those are really fun. And, to try to like work my way up and be playing like all the 10K ones, I didn't know if it was like my first and foremost thing that I wanted to do in my life. There were other things I wanted to work on. But yeah, I think, we would literally have nights at home after playing a tournament all day where we would drink wine and play mixed games, like 3 or 4 of us. Awesome. So I think they're just crazy fun to play. And just because I like them so much, I generally figure games out to some extent strategically, just because I like them so much and I'm thinking about them a lot. So yeah, I definitely dabble, but I would say dabble is as far as it goes.
That's totally fair. Well, I think you have the right approach there. It's about having fun. I can attest the one bracelet event I've ever played, the first one, and hopefully I'll play a little bit more soon, was that $1,500 Dealer's Choice. So and I made it through half the field, so I felt great. But like you said, it's just a lot of fun. Even in a bracelet event, relatively low buy-in for a bracelet event, but you get that fun vibe of people who just enjoy the games. Who's going to call what? Why is everyone calling Badusi? That whole deal.
I'll give you a secret that I don't give up, but
okay. Well, you heard it here, guys. We got a CardsChat podcast exclusive.
I don't know if they still do this in the structure, but in the Dealer's Choice event, so the way it works is it's 6-handed, and every 1 out of 6 orbits you get to pick the game.
Yep.
There's like a second button that goes around for who chooses the game.
Right.
The way they had it structured would be that No Limit Hold'em, the antes that everyone had to put up, because back then it wasn't big blind ante, was about a quarter of the big blind. So you're anteing, well more than a big blind. And then on top of that, every time I would call No Limit out as a game, everyone would basically groan and tell me that, it'd be like, you just take the blinds. We don't care. You can have the blinds and then we'll just play our games. But the thing was like, I might be a dog in every other game, but if I can just win the blinds and antes, 1 out of, for an entire orbit, like 1 out of 6 orbits, like I'm going to go deep in the tournament almost every time. I just have to play tight in the other games. which is fine with me because I don't really know what I'm doing anyways. So I think I like final 3 or 4 tabled that tournament. And when we got down to like the final 3 or 4 tables, I remember having this thought, like, I can't win this tournament. I'm drawing dead to winning this tournament because when we get 3 or 4 handed, they're going to start calling out games like Raz Doogie.
Yep.
And I can't play Raz Doogie. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing. So like, I've never been in a tournament where I just feel like I'm drawing dead to win the tournament.
Wow.
It was a strange feeling, but
interesting. That's an interesting little tip there. I mean, like from a strategic standpoint to like, make it through, ladder up a little bit. I like it, but I would be groaning too. I mean, there's so many other no limit hold'em tournaments on schedule, but I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah. But I felt like, in my mind, it was like, I'm giving enough equity to the field by playing this thing in the first place. You can give me a little back by letting me call no limit. You know what I mean?
I love it.
Like I used to play I was trying to learn mix more. So when I busted out of tournaments, I would play either 10-20 either 20-40 or 40-80 limit mix games in the cash room at the Rio. And I would sit down, I would tell them like, look guys, like I'll play your game and I will lose money in the game, but you have to tell me what I'm doing wrong after each hand. And they're like, okay, deal. And after they saw me play like 5 hands, like this is easily worth it for us.
Okay.
And I was happy because I was learning or whatever. But
right. And like you say, I
usually know.
Vibe, so.
Yeah, I usually know when I'm the fish, and I'm like, I want to get a little rake back out of this. You're gonna give me some info or something.
It's a great attitude. I love it. The honesty. Well, in this segment of the show, we now turn to you guys, our Cards Chat community, to see what questions you wanted to ask our guests. We have a dedicated thread on the Cards Chat forums for this. So as we announce who our future guests will be, please be sure to send in your questions. And the first questions come from Shells. Thank you very much, Shells. Jesse, what or who influenced you to pursue poker full-time? I know you kind of mentioned you played games as a kid. Was there any specific individual involved?
I mean, I guess I watched like Rounders with my dad and talked about poker a little bit, but it was more like when you watch Rounders, you think that poker is just looking at your opponent and knowing what they have. And obviously that's not, I mean, that's a tiny part of it, but that's
the Oreo cookie is the other.
Yeah.
part.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, there are moments where you'll figure stuff out about a guy. I've got some pretty strong libraries on people, but it's certainly like the last 3% of the game, right? Not the first 97%. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably watch Rounders and talk to my dad a little bit about that, but I think really it was like watching Moneymaker win was the first moment, because that was the first time I really saw televised poker.
Interesting.
I remember vividly, I was in my friend's basement and they were talking about like the odds, and they didn't really say ranges back then, but they would kind of talk about like what hands they could have. And it just, all of a sudden it made sense to me. It was like this very analytical approach to the game, which I mean, I'm just extremely like left-brained analytically, intelligence based. I don't know how to say it, but that made a lot of sense to me. I couldn't look at people and figure out what they had. I tried and it didn't work. So yeah, that was like the aha moment. And then I immediately made my friend and his little brother and his dad all play poker with me. And and yeah, I just kept playing. My friends would have games in like their garage or whatever, and I was playing that. And then went off to college and realized that I could use a debit card to put money on the poker site online. So I started doing that. Yeah. Realized that the casinos out there were 18 and up, some of them. So I started driving like 2.5 hours each way to go to the casino.
Yep.
Yeah, just a lot of being obsessed with games and doing whatever I could to play them, to play poker.
Nice. The next question from Shells is a little bit related. Do you have a favorite casino or poker room to visit?
So that, I guess I have a few because they all mean something different to me. So the Bellagio has always been kind of my home. Since I moved to Vegas, I played most of my cash games there. I know the people who work I have some really good friends who work the room, like the podium, we call it, like the floor people. Sure. In a couple other rooms. But yeah, I mean, I've just known the people who work at the Bellagio the longest. I just like love seeing them. I know all the regulars at the Bellagio. I've been playing with them for like the last 8 years. Nice. It just feels like very much like a second home in the Bellagio. As far as casinos go, I love Crown Casino in Melbourne.
Mhm.
That's a huge one for me. That's a great casino. They take really good care of people who, come out for that tournament from the
Mm.
US. They know we've traveled a long way, and they're really good about accommodating us. In particular, there's one person there, Haley, who does an outstanding job, just like always helping me with little things. I don't know. Um, uh, I like the Seminole Hard Rock in Florida,
Yep.
in Fort
Mhm.
Lauderdale, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Fort Lauderdale. I almost said West Palm Beach because Ashley grew up in West Palm Beach, and we go to West Palm Beach and hang out with her family whenever we go there. But yeah, I like that casino a lot. I don't know where it ranks on like a list of casinos, but it has a lot of things that I personally like in a casino that a lot of casinos don't have. Like, it has windows. Feels nice to like
Yes.
look at the outside world when you're.
And Fort Lauderdale is pretty beautiful. A lot of good
Yeah,
palm
it's
trees
beautiful.
and stuff. A lot of very nice scenery there.
They usually have a series in like February or April or sometime when it's not particularly warm other places, and it's great there, and you hang out by the pool.
Yep.
I'm probably missing a bunch. There's a ton of casinos throughout the country that are like beautiful casinos that you just might not travel to. Like, I remember we went to Cherokee.
Mhm.
We were just on a road trip back to Massachusetts from Vegas, and we stopped at Cherokee right when they were having a circuit series thing.
Mhm.
And that casino is amazing.
It's in
It's just
North
like out in the
Carolina, right?
mountains. Yeah, I
Mhm.
believe so. One of the Carolinas.
Yeah. Probably the north one. Yeah. That's an interesting route you took back to Las Vegas from Massachusetts. That nice.
But yeah, well, we do the southern route sometimes and dip into Florida and see Ashley's family.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Drive back up. Yeah.
Very good.
But yeah, we sorry, I haven't had enough coffee. I should know where Cherokee is, to be honest. I'm a little embarrassed, but what can you do?
All good. All good. And I know.
So yeah, there's a lot of spots I like for different reasons, essentially. So it's hard to pick, but those are some that I really enjoyed and thought they were really nice places.
Right. Well, I know that Cherokee one. I'm pretty sure North Carolina. I know they do a WSOP circuit. They give away rings there, so I'm aware of that one.
Let me say,
sure.
I don't want to miss them. The Win Poker Room. They've been running phenomenal tournament series. They've been doing a really great job. They're awesome, and the Win's obviously if it's not the best casino in Vegas, it's always in the argument. The Win's unbelievable.
Shout out to the Win. That's Ryan Beauregard runs that room, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Cool. Very good.
Sorry,
nice
I don't want to say that. I don't want to be incorrect about that.
Okay, that's fair. Gotta hedge that. Our next question asker and submitter, Acid Burn FX, longtime listeners of the show, knows that this Acid Burn FX knows how to ask some very interesting questions. Hope you're ready for them, Jesse. First one, if you had to teach something, what would you teach?
Like outside of poker, or?
That wasn't specified, but take it wherever you'd like.
So I teach poker a lot, and I'd probably just pick that because, I think I'm decent at it. I spent a lot of time doing it. Mm-hmm. If I weren't to teach poker, I don't know, maybe something with just like I don't really like the term like life coach, but something like around helping people just like set up their lives in the best possible way, just based on like the things I've done right and the things I've done wrong. I made a lot of mistakes in life, but I've learned a lot from like some of the smarter people around me about just setting up like the most simplified, automated life possible and making it as stress-free as possible.
I like that. You only have one to live, so might as well make it the best you can. I like that. Good answer.
Yeah. There's a lot of good books on stuff like that, so it's not like they would need me for that. But I've definitely taken some excerpts out of books that I think are really good.
Okay. Second and final question from Acid Burn FX. There's a bit of a brain twister here. Would you rather lose all of your old memories or never be able to make new ones?
Yeah, that's tricky. So basically, I can't remember anything from this point on, or I can only remember stuff from the past. I think I would have to take the second, the remembering new things, because you just can't really operate. Like, people who have amnesia can go about their lives and do things, right? But like if you can't remember like what happened 20 seconds ago, like a memento type of thing, yeah, you just like can't really operate in the world. So I guess I'd have to go with the second thing.
I like the. I was looking forward to your answer on that one because, like you said, you're very left brain analytical. So I was curious, like, what sort of wheels are turning in there to know how to answer that one properly. Interesting answer.
Yeah.
Crystals has a few questions for you before we wrap up the show. Thank you very much, Crystals. Jesse, how do you and the other members of Team Floptimal come up with your charts?
So we've been using Munker Solver. Munker Solver is I guess, a toy game solver. You basically give it a bunch of inputs. For instance, in Munker, we give it bet sizes, both pre-flop and post-flop, and it runs through the entire game tree several times. So based on the sizes that we give it, it runs every possible, raise, re-raise, every permutation that could of betting events that could happen. And then it looks at how every possible hand plays in those betting events. And then it looks at like the profitability of playing one way versus the other. And then it like eventually comes up with an answer that is, you should do this pre-flop with this hand, or maybe you should do two different things, but at this frequency. These programs are, well, they're definitely difficult to use. They take a lot of time learning the programs, learning all the little intricacies of writing a good tree up. But they also take a long time to solve. So we have a very, very powerful computer that we spent a bunch of money to build. Some people actually just rent out server space with some of these server companies because you can't fit that much in a physical computer. So you actually want to rent out servers sometimes for this stuff. But even then, it takes some of these ranges take 6 to 8 weeks to run.
That's crazy.
So yeah, it takes a tremendous amount of computing power and time and money and effort. But you end up getting solutions to something that you otherwise just wouldn't have the full answer to.
Right. And at the end, it's not a cost as much as it is an investment because it'll obviously make you better at what you do. So
yeah,
that
for sure.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
I mean, I paid a lot of money for ranges before we started creating our own ranges. I like our ranges more. I think, I'm obviously biased, but I think that we did a lot of good stuff with choosing certain inputs. But I paid a lot of money for ranges in the past to use as study tools because it's absolutely worth it for me, at least, to have that information.
Second question from Crystals. What was the hardest part about making it through all of the days leading up to the final table of the 2012 WSOP main event?
The sleep, 100%. I just every day I would get like an hour less of sleep. So, going into day 6, I probably got like 5.5 hours. Going into day 7, probably got like 4 hours.
That's
I actually got more sleep at the final table between the first day and the second day, probably because making the final table was such a big thing to me.
Yeah.
And so playing it out was obviously like it's even bigger because you could win and the pay jumps are so much larger, but it was almost like a relief to make the final table. That was one of my like big goals in life or whatever, is to final table the main.
Interesting. Penultimate, second to last question here from Crystals. You made a deep run, as we discussed earlier, at the Win Millions this year. What stood out to you as the first year? Oh, I see. Okay, interesting wording here. What stood out to you about this first of the year 10K event compared to some of the other 10K events that you've played? So like the US Poker Open or something like that. What was specifically, I don't know, notable about this 10K Win Millions?
Okay, sorry. Can we pause for 30 seconds?
Absolutely. So just to sort of ask you again, you made, this is, second to last question here from Crystals. You made a deep run at the Win Millions this year, as we discussed earlier in the show. What stood out to you about this specific 10K event versus other 10K events you may have played, like, the US Poker Open or something like that?
I mean, this one was a lot bigger, and I guess kind of what I talked about, how well run it was earlier. That stood out to me, how they just paid a lot of attention to detail on a ton of things, and they really made it a nice tournament for people to play. It was very comfortable.
Mhm.
The way they timed out days and stuff was great.
Yeah.
From like a tournament standpoint, it was a big field. So that always stands out to me, because the more days we go, the more excited you get and less sleep you get each day.
Yeah.
This tournament was actually nice for me, because it was one of the first tournaments, especially at 10K, where I went deep, that I got all the sleep I needed. Somehow I ended every day as like a short stack. So I just went to bed and slept like a baby, because I was like, I'll probably be out the first level of the next day. And then I would just kind of stick around. I ran really good in all-ins. I don't think I won a pot day 3 or day 4 that wasn't an all-in. It was the kind of tournament that'll really, bang on your ego a little bit, because you just feel like a luck box who's just winning all-ins and not winning any other pots. But realistically, I think I was playing most pots reasonably well. I just was being unlucky in the other pots. But
Got it.
yeah, so it was definitely nice for once to play a tournament where I got some sleep.
Nice. Well, that's definitely a theme in your answers.
I never got that excited like I was going to win it, because I had such a small percentage of the chips in play every day, and I was short.
That's
and
interesting.
And then day 4, when we get down to 25 or something, I won some all-ins, and all of a sudden I have above average stack, and I was like, oh my god, we could actually win this tournament.
Right.
And then I immediately lost 2 huge pots and was out. It was like,
stick with
great.
what works. Stay on the short stack works. Final question for you, Jesse. And again, thanks so much for sticking with us this entire time here. What from Crystals, what do you think you'll enjoy more in 10 years from now? Playing poker or creating training courses and content? I like this question.
I think I'll always probably, I've really enjoyed the process of creating training content. It's something new, and it's really fun. And it's very different, so it's hard to compare, but I imagine, just that comfortable feeling of sitting down and playing poker will always be, that's always one of my favorite feelings in life in general. So I'd probably go with that.
Okay.
But they're also very different things, and it's been very fulfilling learning more about, creating a business and all the ins and outs of that.
Nice. Well, I know that it's been very fulfilling knowing and learning a little bit more about you. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who sent in questions for you, Jesse, for Jesse Sylvia. A friendly reminder to everyone out there in the CardsChat community, we would love to see you submit your questions for our future podcast guests in the dedicated thread in the forums. And please be sure to give us a good review on iTunes or wherever else you catch this show, and spread the word via your social media channels if you liked it. Jesse, before we let you go, anything else you'd like to tell our listeners or people watching?
Just whatever you do at the poker table, have fun. I see people get so mad when they take a bad beat or get frustrated when they're card dead. Go out and have fun. I've seen people who are competing at the highest level of this game, and most of those guys are having a lot of fun at the table. And if you can do it in that sort of a high anxiety environment, I think you can do it anywhere. And we got into this thing to have fun. So make sure you're enjoying it.
Awesome. Love it. Great advice from a great guy. Jesse, thank you very much once again. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the CardsChat podcast. I'm Robbie Straczynski. You can follow me on Twitter @CardPlayerLife. I wish you all a wonderful day.